You have $100, not $10,000, not a bonus, not an inheritance, not money that suddenly appeared at exactly the right moment. $100, the amount that can disappear over a weekend without leaving behind anything you remember buying. Dinner, gas, a few deliveries, something from Amazon. Gone by Monday, you could not explain where it went. That is what makes $100 strange. It feels too small to build wealth with, and somehow too important to give up. But this is where the story starts. Not with the perfect portfolio, not with a six-figure salary, not after you finally understand everything about investing. It starts with one decision that feels almost embarrassingly small compared with what you were trying to build. $100 every month. You open a brokerage account. You choose a diversified investment that fits your goals and risk tolerance. Then you automate $100 every month. This is essentially dollar cost averaging, investing the same amount at regular intervals regardless of whether markets are rising or falling. It does not guarantee a profit or protect you from losses. But it removes the need to make a new timing decision every month. You click confirm, nothing happens, no music, no celebration, no feeling that your financial life just changed. The first $100 enters the market, then the account drops to $99.70. You check it before bed. Then again 20 minutes later, still $99.70. This is the beginning, and the beginning looks like absolutely nothing. Months 1 through 6 every month, another $100 leaves checking. You barely notice it at first. Then 1 month money gets tight. Car insurance is due. Someone invites you out. The electric bill is higher. For the first time you think, I'll skip the investment just this month. That sentence is more dangerous than it sounds, because most financial systems do not die dramatically. You do not announce, I quit investing forever. You miss 1 month, then another. Then the automatic transfer gets canceled. 6 months later, the account is something you used to do. So you leave the automation alone. Month 2, $100. Month 3, another 100. The market rises, then falls. By 6 months, you have contributed $600. The exact account value depends on what markets did during those 6 months. And that is the first lesson. Your balance is not the habit. The habit is the part you control. Most days, nothing rewarding happens. No visible transformation. No life-changing return. You are developing consistency before consistency has given you anything back. That is why this level is difficult. You are being asked to continue a behavior before there is enough evidence to make the behavior feel intelligent. You continue anyway. Year 1, 12 months. Total contributions, $1,200. Using a purely hypothetical 10% annual return compounded monthly, the balance would be approximately $257. About $57 of hypothetical growth, not $500, not $5,000, $57. You could make that in a few hours of work. The Investor.gov compound interest calculator uses the same basic input starting amount, monthly contribution, time, and an estimated rate to illustrate potential growth. But that rate is only an assumption. Actual investments fluctuate and can lose money. So what exactly did you accomplish? Something the balance does not show. 12 times, $100 could have become something else. 12 times, it did not. You bought groceries, paid rent, went out, lived your life. And somehow the month still survived without that $100. That matters, because before you started, the money felt essential. Now you have 12 months of evidence that at least this specific amount could be redirected without destroying your life. The $57 is not the achievement. The repetition is. Year 2 and year 3 now the account becomes slightly more interesting. Not exciting. Interesting, you stop checking it 3 times a day. You have other things to do. The transfer happens. You work. Life moves. Then the market drops. Not 0.3%, a real drop. Your account value falls enough that the loss is larger than one of your monthly contributions. Suddenly, watching becomes emotional again. You start thinking, maybe I should stop until things calm down. But nobody sends an email when the market becomes safe. You only know the bottom after the bottom has passed. So, the $100 continues. During lower price periods, that same contribution buys more shares. During higher price periods, it buys fewer. That consistency is the basic logic behind dollar cost averaging. By the end of year 3, you have contributed $3,600. At that same hypothetical 10% return, the account would be approximately $4,178, about $578 above what you contributed. Now the gap is visible, still small, but visible. Your money is beginning to contribute beside you. You put money into the account, and under this hypothetical scenario, the money already inside also creates growth. That is compounding. And compounding is unimpressive when the balance is small. That is why people underestimate it. 10% of $1,000 is only $100. 10% of $10,000 is $1,000. 10% of $100,000 is $10,000. The percentage did not change. The machine got heavier. Year 5, you have now made 60 monthly contributions. Total deposited $6,000. At the same hypothetical 10% annual return, the account is approximately $7,744, about $7,744 of hypothetical growth. That is still not retirement money. It is not a house. It is not financial freedom, but it is proof. Proof that a number capable of disappearing every weekend can become almost $8,000 when it keeps receiving the same instruction. And your relationship with money has changed along the way. You do not necessarily spend less on everything. You spend more intentionally. There is a difference. You still go on the trip. You still buy things you enjoy. But the $100 no longer participates in the negotiation. It became part of the monthly structure, like rent, like insurance, like the phone bill, except this bill is payable to your future. And now we need to talk about something most investing videos conveniently skip. The leak behind the investment account. Imagine your investment account is hypothetically earning 10%. But you have $4,000 sitting on a credit card at 25%. One account is building, the other is destroying cash faster. That is not wealth creation. It is a race where your debt started miles ahead. The sexinvestor.gov says paying off high-interest credit card debt generally provides a better, lower-risk financial result than trying to earn investment returns while carrying that debt. So before you become obsessed with reaching $10,000 in investments, look at the other side of your financial life. Maybe your $100 needs to go toward expensive revolving debt first. Maybe you need a small emergency fund so every car repair does not go straight back onto the card. And maybe part of the problem is sitting inside your credit reports. You finally pull Experian, TransUnion, Equifax, you compare them. One account shows the wrong balance. A closed card is still marked open. A payment is reported late even though your records show otherwise. A collection appears twice. An account does not belong to you at all. Those are among the common credit report errors the CFPB specifically tells consumers to review. That is where legitimate credit repair begins. Not delete everything negative. Not claiming fraud when there was no fraud. Not challenging an accurate account simply because you want the score to move. Accurate negative information generally cannot simply be removed because it hurts your credit. Inaccurate or incomplete information can be disputed with the credit reporting company and the company that furnished it, typically at no cost. So you fix what is genuinely wrong. You pay down what is genuinely yours. You protect every future payment. Because payment history and amounts owed, including revolving utilization, are the two largest broad categories used in FICO score calculations, although their exact impact varies by credit profile. Then you return to the investment account. The $100 continues. But now, fewer dollars are leaking out through expensive debt and damaged financial habits. Year 10 years, 120 transfers, total contributions, $12,000. At the hypothetical 10% rate, the account reaches approximately $20,484. You contributed $12,000. The hypothetical growth added about $8,484. Now something has changed. The growth is no longer a cute extra number at the bottom of the statement. It matters. At $20,000, a strong market year can move the account by thousands. A bad year can do the same thing in the opposite direction. That second part matters. Compounding works beautifully in calculators because calculators do not have bear markets. Real life does. Returns arrive unevenly. Some years may be strongly positive, some negative, some nearly flat. That is why the 10% in this story is an illustration, not a promise. But the behavior has become almost permanent now. You no longer ask, should I invest the $100 this month? The question disappeared years ago. The money simply moves. That is the power of automation. Not that it makes better investment decisions for you. It removes one recurring opportunity to make an emotional one, and somewhere around this point, your credit may look completely different too. 10 years of cleaner payments, lower card balances, fewer unnecessary applications, genuine errors corrected when they appeared. The investment account did not repair the credit. The same system repaired both. Consistency, time, less reaction. More planning. The person who once needed a credit card for every emergency may now have savings. The person who once walked into a dealership asking, "Can you get me approved?" may now arrive with a bank or credit union offer and ask, "Can you beat this rate?" That is what financial progress actually looks like. Not one number going up. Several forms of fragility disappearing at the same time. Year 20 you are 20 years in. 240 monthly contributions. Total contributed $24,000. Hypothetical account value at 10%, approximately $75,937. You deposited $24,000. The hypothetical growth is nearly $52,000. Now the money generated by the projection is more than twice the amount you personally contributed. This is the point the beginning version of you could not emotionally understand. When you started, the $100 did almost all the work. Now the balance itself has enough weight to potentially move by thousands of dollars in a year. Again, it can move down too. But the scale is different. The machine you carried for years can now become larger than the person feeding it. And here is the strange part. The $100 may feel easier now than it did 20 years ago. Your income probably changed. Inflation changed what $100 buys. Maybe you increased the contribution years earlier. Maybe you did not. But for this example, we never increased it. Still $100. The point is to isolate what time does, and time has done almost all the interesting work. Year 30 years. Total contributions, $36,000. Hypothetical value, approximately $226,049. The difference, about $190,000. You did not deposit that $190,000. It is the mathematical result of the assumed return repeatedly acting on previous contributions and previous growth. This is where the first year starts looking almost ridiculous. Remember, you invested $1,200. The hypothetical hypothetical growth was only around $57. You wondered whether any of this mattered. 30 years later, under the same smooth 10% illustration, a balance around $226,000 could move by more than $20,000 during a 10% year. Your annual contribution is still only $1,200. The relationship has inverted. At the beginning, you were the machine. The investment was tiny. Now the capital has enough scale that its movement can dwarf what you add each year. This is why time matters so much. Not because every year produces a beautiful return, because every additional year gives whatever capital survived the previous years another opportunity to compound. Year 40 years, 480 monthly decisions, total amount you personally contributed, $48,000. Hypothetical account value at a smooth 10% annual return compounded monthly, approximately $632,408. The hypothetical growth, more than $584,000. You contributed $48,000 across 4 decades. The rest came from an assumption. That sentence matters because you will see financial content online saying, invest $100 and become a millionaire. No, this exact hypothetical does not even reach $1 million, and real markets do not produce a smooth 10% every year. The lesson is not that $100 guarantees $632,000. The lesson is that small recurring amounts can become surprisingly large when time and positive returns are allowed to interact for decades. Investor. Gov provides its compound interest calculator for exactly this kind of scenario planning, while requiring the user to supply an estimated not guaranteed return. And there is another lesson hiding underneath the math. 40 years contained, recessions, bull markets, bear markets, job changes, car repairs, medical expenses, rent increases, relationships, children for some people. Parents getting older, months when the $100 felt meaningless, months when it felt impossible. The impressive thing is not one transfer. It is 480 of them. That is what people misunderstand when they see somebody decades later with money. They see the final balance. They did not see transfer number 17, or 84, or 211. They did not see the month when the account fell 20% and the automatic contribution still happened. They did not see the credit card balance being paid down instead of another vacation being financed. They did not see the report being reviewed and a genuine error disputed before the mortgage application. They did not see the old car kept for another year because the replacement could wait. From the outside, compounding eventually looks like luck. From inside the process, it mostly looks repetitive. What $100 actually builds the numbers matter. But the numbers are not the most interesting thing here. The first $100 builds almost nothing financially. It builds a decision. The first year builds a habit. 5 years builds evidence. 10 years builds momentum. 20 years gives capital weight. 30 years lets the growth begin dominating the contribution. 40 years shows you what time was doing while you were busy living. And the same principle applies outside investing. A late payment repeated creates a pattern. A high credit card balance carried month after month creates interest. A $100 automatic investment repeated creates assets. A $100 extra debt payment repeated destroys liabilities. A clean payment made every month builds better credit history. Systems compound. Good ones, bad ones. That is the part worth understanding. Most people are waiting for a large amount. When I make more, I'll invest. When I get the raise, when the debt is gone, when things calm down, when I can do $500 instead of $100. But waiting is also a financial decision. Time passes either way. The person who starts small gets to improve the amount later. The person who waits for the perfect amount first has to start the habit later too. So maybe your number is not $100. Maybe high interest debt means the first $100 needs to attack the card. Maybe you need the emergency fund first. Maybe $100 is genuinely too much and the sustainable amount is $25. The number is not the entire lesson. The system is. Close the expensive leaks. Make sure the credit file is accurate. Protect every payment. Build the emergency reserve. Then automate an amount that can stay invested for the long term. And when your income increases, you can increase the number. But never underestimate the first version simply because it looks small. Because $100 spent once is $100. $100 directed every month becomes a behavior, and behavior given 40 years becomes something completely different. The machine does not care whether the first contribution impressed anyone. It only cares whether the next one arrives. $100. Every month, starting now. Then leave time enough room to show you what small actually means.